This is the Average Joe Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode 12, Daniel Fredell. Daniel has studied many different martial arts disciplines and is trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, currently holding a brown belt under Jason Bebber at Fenix Jiu-Jitsu, located at 841 8th Avenue, Northeast Hickory, at zip code 28601. He's also studied Krav Maga, currently holding a tan shirt under Caroline Kone at Warriors Krav Maga, and also studied Muay Thai. Daniel has an associate degree from Gaston College in Health and Fitness Science Programming. There he was awarded the Leadership Award, Excellence Award, and Outstanding Graduate Award. Daniel has completed 2-semester dual internships with Hickory Cardiology and the Cardiopulmonary Rehabilitation Department at Frye Regional Medical Center. Daniel was hired as a Rehab Tech II at Frye shortly after his internship ended. Daniel is a certified fitness professional through ACSM, which is the American College of Sports Medicine, and ACE, which is the American Council on Exercise. While Daniel has moved away from the medical facility, he still works closely with local chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, and rehabilitation therapists through their referrals for patients in need of rebuilding strength and mobility. Daniel is also the author of 2 books, the first one being Jits Fit, and the second is titled Simple to Savage Kettlebell, Taking You from Beginner to Advanced. Both of these books are available in paperback on Amazon, and I believe the second is also available on Kindle, Simple and Savage. So welcome to the podcast, Daniel. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that great introduction.
You wrote it, so it was.
Yeah,
I modified it a little bit, but you wrote it. No, it's really interesting. That's quite an impressive background.
Thank you.
Congratulations on those awards too. That takes a lot. So if you don't mind, can you tell us how old you are and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'm 34 years old. I've been in martial arts in one capacity or the other for most of my life. I started out honestly in karate, of all things, back when I was a kid, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. I don't know. It wasn't that I had a bad instructor or anything like that. The class was great. I don't know. It didn't feel fun to me, if I can put it that way. It was very strict. We had the katas. We had a certain bow-in routine, like all of that stuff. It was the traditional karate school like you would go to. So I kind of fell out of that. And then when I was about 12, 13, I started getting back into martial arts again. As soon as I got my license, I joined a Muay Thai program. And again, great guys, but man, we just beat the crap out of each other. We really did. None of us really knew what we were doing. So we would go over 1 or 2 techniques, and that would take about 15 minutes. And then for like an hour, we just sparred. So we all accumulate a lot of damage in very time. So I held on to that for a while, and then I just decided to try another martial art. One of my high school friends was an excellent wrestler, and every time me and him sparred, I ended up getting put on my back, took to the ground. I'm like, dude, teach me some wrestling. Like, I don't like this. So I kind of developed a little bit of wrestling, but not a lot. As Jason Bebber calls it, we kind of developed a anti-wrestling style. So our style of jiu-jitsu is just trying to shut down takedowns, and like if we do get taken down, learn how to fall in the correct place to where we can start working our game and stuff like that. So I kind of stuck with that. And once I found jiu-jitsu, man, it just changed everything. I really slacked off on Muay Thai. About a year into my jiu-jitsu journey, I just quit Muay Thai altogether and focused on jiu-jitsu as a whole. I still like to hang out every now and then. We've got a pro MMA fighter that trains with us. So when he's got fights coming up, I used to get out there and spar with him a little bit, just kind of mix it up, just to have fun. But yeah, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and I've been with it ever since.
Awesome. And you are, like I said, you're currently a brown belt now. I remember that. Yeah. Good. And when did you get your brown belt?
I got my brown belt in, I believe, February of this year.
Oh, nice. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's what I'm working toward right now. It's hopefully at some point.
I got you. What rank? So you're purple belt?
Yeah, I'm purple belt now. Yeah. So obviously that's my next, goal is to get my brown belt. But when it happens, it happens. Just training. Just trying to get better is my primary thing. But
Yeah, I tried to get out of getting my brown belt.
Yeah, did you? Did you really?
Yeah. Purple belt was so fun, man. to me, like purple belt, you're kind of like the teenager who's kind of dangerous. You know, you don't really have a lot of responsibility, and people don't expect a lot of you.
Right.
But you know enough about jiu-jitsu to where you can have a good role with everybody.
Right.
So it's like the expectations are low, but your skill is pretty high for where you're at. So no, purple belt is my favorite belt.
Really that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's been a journey for me. You know, I got mine in, was it February of 2019? And then the day I got my second stripe, was the last day we trained before when the pandemic hit, before they shut down. And then I didn't train at all for a year. And I just watched video like constantly. I've worked out a lot in my garage. You know, I have a pretty decent setup in my garage as far as a home gym. Yeah. And I would work out. I worked out a lot, and I watched a lot of instructionals. And it actually, I found it actually worked pretty well to keep it in my head. And then when I did go back, it really wasn't that bad of a transition. It wasn't anything like what I was thinking. I thought, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get crushed. And it didn't happen. So I was pretty happy with that. And now I'm back to training, 4 days a week. I used to do, for the first 7 years I trained like probably 5-6 days a week, every week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot. But I paid for it too, because I'm not that young, and I accumulated, my share of injuries, and I got sick a lot, and I think that the recovery factor, that's something I want to talk to you about today too, was recovery. To me, it's a big thing, but I think that was an issue for me. And I finally got to the point this year where I was like, hey, I turned 50 in August, and I was like, I really have to start paying attention to that. And as much as I like to train every day, training doesn't have to necessarily be physical training. And I said, let's break it down to, or reduce it down to 4 days a week max and see how it goes. And so far, so good. Knock on wood, it's been good. So I feel like I get enough. It's the right amount of training, like time on the mat, where I'm not getting all beat up. And I think there's another factor of, I want to get into you too with like gi versus no gi. I think that was part of the factor of less injury or less damage on my part, is I'm doing a lot more no gi now than I am with the gi.
Really?
I find that I get, because the academy I train at now is primarily no gi academy, but I find that I get a lot less wear and tear on my body from the no gi, and I'm not as tired, and I don't gas out like I did with the gi as much.
That's interesting. Normally it's the other way around.
For me, it's not.
Normally with anytime you're in the gi, it's much more of a technical battle because you're constantly fighting grips, and no gi is more athletic, creating scrambles and takedowns. All that.
Yeah, it is. But I think part of it is like when you're in the gi, it's almost like swimming through mud sometimes too, because of all the friction. So I think that you have at least in my experience, I've had a tendency to experience more gas out with the gi. I don't know what it is with the no gi. I just don't gas out as much. I mean, I do get tired, but it feels different to me. It just feels different to me. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. How old are you currently now?
34.
34. Boy, you're lucky. Oh, that'd be it. So, what was your first exposure to strength and conditioning, by the way?
My first exposure was about high school. I'd say I was about 14. Growing up, I wasn't able to play any type of sports. I had some terrible childhood asthma. I mean, I'd be 9 years old, walk up a flight of steps, and I'd have to hit my inhaler.
Wow.
I wasn't able to play any sports growing up. So whenever I hit like 13, I started growing out of it. I didn't have to do my weekly breathing treatments at home. I didn't have to carry an inhaler with me, even though I had it occasionally.
Right.
But I just basically my lungs decided to work for the first time ever. And I just, at that age, I was like a sophomore in high school. So it's kind of late to try to pick up sports. I come from a small town. So like the basketball players started when they were 4, the football players when they were 4, the wrestlers their entire life. So I felt like if I started a school sport then, I would be a decade behind of all my peers. So I decided not to do that, but I got into weight training. And, back in high school, me and my wife joke about this. I was 135 pounds and she was like 140 pounds. So my wife was literally heavier than me back in high school. But so I mean, I was just a scrawny kid. I couldn't do anything athletically because I literally could not breathe to do so. So when I started growing out of that, I joined weight training, absolutely fell in love with it, and I've just stayed with it ever since. I started training regularly about 3 days a week when I was 14, and I've continued that on to 34.
Wow. It's funny how when I do the more of these interviews I do, I find it entertaining or interesting how much people I have in common with all these people I interview. Like I had childhood asthma.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I grew out of it around, and I don't recall having I didn't have an inhaler, but a lot of my asthma was like, I was allergy induced. So I had to get shots every week, like one in each arm every Saturday for years. But then I did grow out of it as well. Like when I went to go try to get in the military, they made an issue out of it. And I had to go back to see my pediatrician, and he checked me out, and he told me I didn't have it. He wrote me a letter and everything. They still made an issue out of it, and they still kicked me out. They still didn't let me through, which was at the time very heartbreaking for me. I really wanted to go into the military, but it didn't happen. But I wanted to ask you about the asthma. Does it still affect you to this day at all?
No, literally by the time I was 15, it was completely gone.
Wow.
0 issues whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I think because of all the breathing treatments I took when I was young, my lungs really got built up over that, and that's one of the reasons why I went into cardiopulmonary rehab was to deal with people who had the lung and the heart issues and everything like that. I just felt very lucky. Don't get me wrong, a lot of kids grow out of childhood asthma, but I felt very lucky that it wasn't a continuing thing. Ever since I turned 15, I've been extremely active every chance I could. I do mountain racing, I do obstacle course racing, I've done a couple ultra marathons, mental physique challenges. Like I try to keep everything active about my lifestyle. I just absolutely love the fact that I can, go run 30 miles and I can breathe afterwards and feel okay.
It's awesome. Yeah. I was like, because we were having a lot of bad weather issues in California here for the last couple of months. And I was starting to feel like I had asthma again sometimes. Like I had a little touch, like it was coming back. It was starting to freak me out a little bit. And then it stopped. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess it can come back as you get older a little bit. But I'm okay now. So I don't know. But what were your early influences as far as strength training when you first got into it? Were you like I know when I first got into it, and I was about 17, it was bodybuilders. It was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu and then all the guys who came, like Rich Gaspari and Lee Haney and all the guys that came across and, came through in the 80s and into the 90s.
Yeah. So Arnold, I think he was the biggest influence of everybody on the planet, So it was definitely Arnold. I really like Frank Zane because he was a smaller guy who could still take on the bigger guys, But I was with the bodybuilding style of things till I was about 17 or 18. And then I started working with a Steve Maxwell video Steve Maxwell is still one of my favorite S&C coaches. Him, Pavel Sitzelin, I got a lot into the combat training side of things.
Right.
So that's what led me into the kettlebell, and that's kind of what I'm known for around here. I do a lot of other things besides just kettlebell work, but I teach seminars on kettlebell training and try to get people to understand the benefits of strength and conditioning together. And that's one of the best things for the kettlebell. So originally it was bodybuilding, and then I got more into the functional side of things through Steve Maxwell, Stephen Cotter, Pavel Sitzelin, those guys. Yeah,
those are all great names. Actually, I follow a lot of them as well.
And one thing I like about them too is, none of those guys are young.
No,
they've dealt with Steve Maxwell's a fourth Dan black belt now. So, he understands the functional training with the strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu. So that's one of the things I always like to follow are the guys who have been in it the longest. All those guys are 50 now. So whenever you talk about injury reduction, they completely understand that side of things.
Right. Exactly. I remember Steve Maxwell saying something that really stuck in my head one time in an interview. He said, if you're doing strength conditioning and you're getting injured from it, you're doing something wrong. And that was something that really stuck in my head. And I really had to try to remind myself over and over again through this journey that I'll get it. Just like my background is I started obviously with the bodybuilding thing, but I did get into powerlifting. I actually, when I was your age, I competed in bodybuilding one time. And so at that point I was really into it. Then after the bodybuilding, I got into powerlifting. Got pretty reasonably strong, but strong enough to injure my connective tissue and have to stop basically. So after that fact, but I still get to the point sometimes where I find myself going back. It's almost like that little power lifter in me always wants to like lift as much as I can. And I have to like pull back the reins on myself a lot to try to get myself to stop doing that. And remember what Steve said is that, the point of what you're doing now is for jiu-jitsu and your overall health, and et cetera. And it's not to like win, powerlifting records, or set records. And, so I always tell myself if I get messed up working out, I was being stupid. And, if I get an injury, it's just like, the idea of you're supposed to be doing this to prevent injury, to make yourself, to improve the quality of your life, not destroy yourself. So that being said, when you did the physique contests, or when you do them, so you've done a couple of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
Two. Do you train the way you currently train, or do you change your training methodology for those to prepare for this?
No, with me, I train and, I eat clean year round. So honestly, the only thing that changes is I do a little bit more arm hypertrophy work. So about 6 months out, I maybe add an arm day to my normal routine. And 4 weeks out, I change my diet, just lean out, start cutting back the carbohydrates, start cutting back a little bit of my overall calories, up the protein just a little bit. So that way, my biggest thing is I don't want to do any type of metabolic damage. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people before their show, they take the entire week off. They just lay around the house, conserve energy, conserve glycogen in the muscles, all that. I don't care about that. Like I compete on Saturday. I did jiu-jitsu Friday twice.
Nice.
I'm never going to stop my activities around an activity or around a different sport. So whenever I have a men's physique show coming up, I, like I said, I start working an arm day in about 6 months out. That way I've got my arms a little bit more developed, just because I don't focus on biceps and triceps. I do the core lifts. I do a very abbreviated training schedule. And then 4 weeks out, I start cutting my calories, upping my protein, try to lean out, drop some water weight.
Nice. I wish I had a physique division when I did it. That would have been perfect for me, because I did it naturally, and I competed in an NPC show naturally in San Jose, and
that's tough.
It was really tough, and the prep was tough, everything. But I mean, it was tough. And if they had a physique division, then I would have entered that. That would have been way better for me. But the before and after result was great. It was that was an accomplishment itself. So I was like, whatever. And you like you said, you've done that twice. So you've taken first 2 times, and you took first both times. That's awesome.
No, my first show I took second and third overall. And my second show, the one that I did earlier this year, I took first place in my class and second overall. Nice.
Congratulations. I mean, that's an achievement. That's a lot of work for people who've never done that or are listening. You don't even know. It's brutal.
The hardest part to me was hitting the tanning bed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a tanning bed place like 20 minutes away. So it would take an hour out of my day, 3 days a week, to go over there just to lay in the tanning. And I mean, I listened to podcasts once in there, and it wasn't that bad. It was just pain in the ass, because it's something you don't want to do, and you need to do it.
Right. I did it one time and I got burned, and I never did it again. And I said, screw that. I got a really good, the brush on, and just did that, and it worked well. It worked well. So what do you feel like are your top 3 components for recovery? Recovery being probably one of the most important things, I think.
I guess top 3 are literally just hitting the basics, getting enough water intake in, making sure you're eating green. So your recovery is based a lot around diet, especially when you start talking about, detoxing and all that stuff. But just getting in plenty of good vegetables, lean meats, cutting out the trash in your diet, getting in plenty of water, and sleep. Sleep's always the number 1 tool for recovery, and it's the first tool that, especially the younger generation, just don't care about. Oh yeah, I got 5 hours in last night. 5 hours isn't doing anything for you.
No, it's not good. That's my thing. I found is that it's sleep's a really big one, and water are very big.
A lot of people discount water, man, but if you start drinking a gallon a day and you do that for 2 weeks, you see a noticeable difference. I mean, of course, you're going to pee a lot in the beginning because your body's not used to it. But once it sees that it has this abundant resource they can start using, it changes everything, man. I mean, you can cut out a ton of muscle soreness. You can cut out a ton of cardiovascular fatigue just by staying healthy, or by staying hydrated, excuse me.
Okay, because that's my thing, is like I used to drink, like in my 30s, and bodybuilding, I was drinking 2 gallons of fluid a day. I haven't.
Yeah.
I admit that I do not do that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was one of the big tools that I used to drop water weight.
Yeah.
Whenever I was drinking 2 gallons of water a day, man, you clean out like crazy. You literally see definition from day 1 to day 2 when you start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to make a pledge to you right now, Daniel. I'm going to start with 1 gallon a day for the next week, and then try to go to 2 weeks. And I'll tell you what happens with it at the end of the 2 weeks. But I'm really interested to see the outcome for the cardiovascular and the recovery factor. I want to see if that much water will make a difference for me. I'm going to do it.
Make sure that you don't change anything else.
Okay.
Like, you want to see how one thing works, change that one thing, and then go from there. After 2 weeks, you see the difference. Good. Let's change one other thing. Try to build those permanent habits. We're not looking for like a crash diet of any sort.
Right.
We want habits for long term.
Perfect. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to go from there. Speaking of dieting, so when I was on your website and I was researching for the interview, I saw there was a banner for a keto diet. Do you follow a keto diet, or do you follow something else normally?
Yeah. So I follow basically a modified paleo diet. Back when we had native keto, it was going strong. I was very religious on keto with that. So like I was called a keto elitist many times.
Yes.
Because like, I mean, if you half-ass a diet, then you half-ass the diet. Right. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh yeah, I tried keto for 2 weeks. It didn't do anything. Well, if you only did it for 2 weeks, you didn't do keto whatsoever. It takes about 5 or 6 weeks to actually get adapted to it, to where your body starts burning off ketones instead of glycogen. But, you know, I mean, whenever I did it, me and my wife both did keto for probably about 3 years. And I had some great progress on it. One of the big things that kept me on keto was just the cognitive benefits that I found. It's like my processor got supercharged. You know, memory recall was better. My decision-making was better, everything. But I also walked around a lot leaner too. I did paleo or modified paleo for 9 years. And then I did keto. And man, I probably dropped 7-8 pounds of water weight and maintained that the entire time. And with recovery, again, one of the big things I found was whenever I was on paleo diet, anytime I would drop down to single digit body fat, my joints would hurt. And I mean, it wasn't like a constant thing, but when I woke up in the morning, you know, my joint just kind of felt stiff and a little creaky and everything. Whenever I did keto, I could comfortably get down single digit body fat and have zero joint pain. So I guess it was just, I mean, that's one of the benefits that's touted through keto is reducing inflammation. But I think also it was all the healthy fats that I was getting in, just keeping my joints greased up. I mean, everything felt great whenever I did keto.
Nice. So what do you mean by modified paleo?
I still like cheese.
Okay.
Whenever I say I'm on like any type of specific diet, you always want to be specific with everything. With paleo, they don't do any type of process. Cheeses, a lot of people don't have dairy whatsoever. So I always say modified paleo. That way they know like I wasn't strict. I modified it because I really like cheese. I like cheese on my eggs, salads, all that stuff. So I added that back in.
Do you eat any grains of any type with the paleo diet?
Yeah, I do now. Not on a regular basis, but every now and then I like having a bagel with some peanut butter and some honey on it. So, you know, I'll maybe eat greens, I don't know, I'd say 2-3 servings a week, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I used to weigh 240 pounds. Like when I was 41, I was powerlifting. Obviously I was pretty strong, but I had some muscle mass underneath all the fat, but I was pretty fat. And I was really fat. I have pictures of it, and I look back on the pictures and I'm just like, oh my God, who the hell is that guy? But I did it. I'd lost it using the paleo diet. I read Mark Sison's book, The Primal Blueprint, and that kicked me off. And I went down a paleo path, and I lost a ton of weight really fast. And I basically stuck to that ever since. I mean, but I have added back in rice, oatmeal, things like that. Like I have some carbohydrates still. But then I do go on kicks where I'm like, I'm just going to cut that out, and I take it out and I just go paleo again. I've never done a keto. I've never done that. My oldest daughter did it for a while, and she did it. She dropped a ton of weight. She's not currently doing it. She's probably doing more of a modified paleo as well. But yeah, I was. It's interesting to see if you did eat any grains, because I've heard that before. I heard the term, somebody used it as paleo for athletes, where they said it was like the paleo diet with like rice and oatmeal thrown into it for carbohydrates.
Everybody likes to market their own stuff. I mean, it's like keto. You know, you've got 50 different styles of keto. So Mark Sisson is who I followed for the Primal Blueprint Paleo, and also who I used his. He had a book before the Keto Reset, and that was the one that I used. But the Keto Reset is an awesome book too. And the one thing that I like about Mark was, you know, none of those restrictive diets are good for long term. You know, me and my wife went for 3 years because we wanted to see like what it would do. We love the benefits, but it is a very restricted way of eating.
Yeah.
You know, we went to family get-togethers or friend's house. We brought our own food. That way, we knew everything was good. And Mark Sisson understands that, and he kind of takes things in seasons as well. You know, he's keto for about 3 months out of the year, which I still kind of do that whenever I was doing the men's physique show. I went back on, but I increased my protein. So technically, that was a modified ketogenic diet as well, because I was getting a lot more protein in than I should have been.
Right. So if you're in a keto diet, what's the macro or the macronutrient breakdown?
The standard breakdown is 70% fat, 25% protein, and 5% or less of carbohydrates. Okay. But once you start looking at like what they call the therapeutic, then you want to have very minuscule amounts of carbohydrate, very low protein, 10 to 15% protein, and then, you know, 85 to 90% fats on that. But trying to get all that stuff in, it's heavy. It's rough.
Can you hear that in the background, the squeaking?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. I got to get him out of here. Hold on 1 second. You're out. Can't do that. I'm trying to talk to somebody. Here. Yeah. Sorry about that. See, I told you it's going to happen eventually. Something's going to happen. He's got his squeak toy, his ball, and he's making noise. I can't even hear what you're even saying. So, so can you do just the last part you said, the micronutrient breakdown with the 5%?
Oh, yeah. So the micronutrient breakdown for, like I said, the standard keto, you're looking at about 70% fat, about 25% protein, and 5% carbohydrates. Whenever you look at like the therapeutic, because, you know, ketogenic diet has also been shown to help out with epilepsy, with arthritis, all of these things. With that, you're looking at very minuscule amounts of carbohydrates, usually 15% protein, and then like 85 to 90% fats.
Wow.
Of course, like it's difficult to get that much fat content in with that little protein and carbohydrates. So usually those guys are on the exact same feeding schedule and the exact same diet every single day.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Like, that's a lot of fat. I mean, how? Give me an example for a day if you were doing that, like in like the regular keto, the way you did it.
Yeah.
What did you eat as far as fat sources?
So the keto that I did, you know, it was more or less the standard ketogenic diet. So I wasn't going with minuscule carbohydrates. Excuse me. But basically, every morning it was 6 eggs with avocado and a little bit of cheese. For lunchtime, I would have like a small salad with maybe a 16-ounce steak, and again, some more avocado. Avocado was my secret weapon, and I would try to cook that in avocado oil or coconut oil, depending on what you're cooking. Coconut oil is kind of a medium heat oil, so if you're trying to saute stuff, you need to get like some extra virgin olive oil or some avocado oil. That way you don't burn the oil while you're cooking. And then dinner would be the same thing. I would get maybe some roast beef, has very high fat content. I eat a lot of sausage. You know, I just tried to get like fattier cuts of meat. That way I could up my fat content. Occasionally, if I knew I was a little bit low, then I would do like the bulletproof coffee, you know, black coffee with some butter or some MCT oil in it, which actually I really like. To me, it makes it, it sounds weird, but it makes it like creamy. You know, it like thickens up the coffee to where it's like a rum milkshake almost.
Right.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I've known of bulletproof coffee for years, and I've never tried it. I've known of people who've done it, and they rave about it. I don't know what it is. I can't get past the idea of drinking butter in my coffee. I just can't do it.
So one thing that you can try is, do you like black coffee?
I actually put heavy whipping cream in my coffee.
Okay. So do coffee with heavy whipping cream, a small bit of butter, maybe a half a tablespoon of butter, and then throw a scoop of chocolate protein powder in on top of it.
Nice.
That was my normal breakfast whenever I was on whenever I was doing keto.
Okay.
I would leave the butter out most of the time,
Uh-huh.
but like once you throw it back in there, and that heavy whipping cream, that's going to make it pretty creamy too. That's going to turn it into a milkshake. But you throw some chocolate protein powder in there instead of creamer. It's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a because I have a whey allergy, so I try to stick to like the plant-based protein powders, and I found one with MCT oil in it. So I might work actually with that. Get a little bit of the MCT. Oops. Hold on a second. My thing just did something. There it is. Okay. I hit a button. So I'm going to talk to you about strength training a little bit, specifically for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And when we have this discussion, I want to curtail it toward what I'm trying to do with my podcast, which is like really gear it toward, the real life average Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, probably has a family, may not necessarily be young, can be young, but doesn't have to be, and has a regular job and other things outside of Jiu-Jitsu. And, we're not doing like double days, 6 days a week, and like training like a high level competitive jiu-jitsu practitioner. So I would say, what are your top 3 to 5 go-to exercises or training modalities for BJJ strength and conditioning? Like, what do you feel is you get the biggest bang for your buck?
Oh man, that's a pretty wide open question. As far
okay,
as
let me try it this way.
Okay.
I'm saying this, and I'm not disagreeing with it or agreeing with it or whatever, but just observation wise, you obviously have a preference for kettlebells, correct? Okay. So why did you feel that the kettlebell was the way to go for you?
So for me, I really love training with kettlebells because the kettlebell fights you the entire way. Okay. A dumbbell, a barbell, all of those are going to be evenly balanced. It fits nicely in your hand. You've got the same amount of weight on each side. You can take a barbell, put whatever weight you want on there, and hold it by the middle because it's evenly balanced. A kettlebell, even if you're just doing like an overhead press, the bell's going to sit on the back of your arm, and it's going to be fighting against you. You can do what we call a bottoms up press, to where you have all of the kettlebell up top, but then it's fighting your grip the entire way. Nothing about the kettlebell is balanced. So every time you do something, it's pulling you in a different way or pushing you in a different way. Even a kettlebell swing, if you go with a heavy kettlebell swing, not only are you fighting the resistance to bring it up, but you're fighting the resistance for it to pull you forward as well. So I think the kettlebell really makes you work on the stabilizer muscles. You really have to know your balance and know your proprioception. And that's not to say I'm against the barbell. I'm actually working on an 8-week program now with the abbreviated style that is kettlebell and barbell training, because nothing beats a barbell back squat. Nothing beats a barbell Romanian deadlift when you're trying to load up the hamstrings and the glutes. And if you are a smaller guy and you need a powerful bridge, the kettlebell swing and the barbell RDL are going to be your 2 powerhouse exercises to start working in that. So the first thing that I do whenever I start working with a new athlete, and I work with a lot of our guys, especially on the competition team, and I work with a lot of athletes from many different sports. We always look at what's your deficiency. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's hard to see. If you're a blue belt or a white belt, then you're not really going to know what your deficiency is. Do you need to work on technique, or do you need to work on your conditioning? Do you need to work on your strength to make those techniques work a little bit better? Right. So you kind of have to talk to your instructor about that. Hey, I feel good with the technique, but it's just not working for me. Okay, well, maybe we need to get you a little bit stronger, or maybe we need to build up some muscular endurance to where when you're at 4 minutes into a match, you're not like trying to break your grip loose and open your hands up. That becomes an issue, especially when you look at the high level guys.
Right.
But with that, is that something you can mitigate just by making your technique strong? You've got a lot of different aspects that go into having a great jiu-jitsu competitor. You have to kind of look at where your deficiency is before you start on that. As far as the 5 like basic, the entire beginning of my book, I talked about the 5 basic movements in order to like better your jiu-jitsu. A was the hip hinge, your deadlifts, your Romanian deadlifts. We had farmer carries. So with the farmer carry, the big thing about it is you're getting overall tension on your body. That's the best thing about it. And you can do this with a lot of mixed carries, but basically just walking with a heavier weight. You can put a weight vest on, go for a 20-mile hike. Your legs are burning afterwards, but it's going to be different parts of your legs. It's not just going to be your glutes, your quads, and your hamstrings and calves. you're going to feel those little stability muscles in your ankles and your knees and your hips and lower back from fighting that weight the entire time. Same thing with kettlebell. You know, you put 2 kettlebells in the rack position and just hold them for 2 minutes and breathe. That's direct pressure on your entire capacity for your lungs, your pecs, your upper back, your traps, everything. So you can just keep constant tension on it. And what do you do when you're fighting for bottom side control? You carry constant tension, right? You know, so you kind of get used to that. You don't get that little panic bell going off in your head anymore because you can't breathe. You know, I actually have a couple of what I call kettlebell flows that are designed for jiu-jitsu guys, and one of them, most of the exercises you're doing are right here. So you're doing walking lunges, you're doing squats, you're doing kettlebell cleans, you're doing a lot of stuff to where you keep that pressure on the lungs themselves.
Nice.
You gotta go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you have a lot of different modalities, but one of the biggest things, especially for beginners, is just learning how to deal with tension. You know, and that's for beginning lifters too. I'm sure you've seen people get on the bench press and like they start doing this look. Like you're not even straining, you just think you're straining. You know, I can't tell you how many new clients I've got. They'll do they'll start doing a bench press and they like get it halfway up and they're like, I can't do it. I'm like, well, if you can talk, you're not building up any type of internal force. You don't know how to strain yet, and they don't know what to do once that tension hits them and they start building up that internal force. They start freaking out. I've had some clients, actually 2 female clients I could think of off the top of my head, have a panic attack from doing a plank. Because once they got to a plank and they broke 30 seconds, they started shaking, go like they just had a panic attack.
Wow.
And I mean, it's pretty common. You know, I've had a couple male clients get into certain things, especially like kettlebell thrusters, to where they get to the bottom, they just dump the bells and almost start crying because they're freaking out. Their body's never had that amount of tension on it before, and it was literally scared at that time.
Yeah, it's true. Like if you're bracing correctly, you cannot talk. You're holding your breath basically. You're bracing, so there's no way you're talking. Yeah. That's something. But that's something that I learned just the last couple of years, or really started to instill the last couple of years, was bracing and the idea of gripping everything as hard as I can. To build the tension, you know, in throughout the body to actually be stronger. One thing I did want to ask you about when you mentioned the farmer's carries, like some of us, like I have a pretty good amount of kettlebells, but I don't have a lot of doubles that weigh the same. But I was thinking, if you were doing a carry with like slightly different weights, or if you had a heavier one lower and a lighter one higher, would that be beneficial as far as core stability?
It can, but you can just do offset carries as well. So you can take one bell, put it in the right position, walk 50 yards, and then switch, put it in the other side. If you have lighter bells, you can also carry them both in the farmer carry and make your core fight to get that stability. You know, one of the things, if you've got, you know, 248 kilos in each hands, then you're carrying 212 pounds, but that's perfectly balanced. So if you drop it off to a 40 kilo, and then you go, not only are you being pulled to the ground, but you're being pulled at an uneven resistance. So the big thing is just making sure you do the same thing on both sides. So I always tell people, you know, walk down 50, 100 yards, switch hands, and then bring it back. And that way you're getting both sides of everything.
And the other thing was, I was remembering is that with your first book, Jits Fit, there was a lot of barbell work in it that I recall. Again, I don't have access to the book currently. I think I'm going to actually purchase it again in soft copy.
And I have a second edition out that I call Fenix Fit. One of the guys that I follow very closely, and he's, you know, now a pretty close friend, is Silver Fox out of New Jersey. Carl Pravik. So I was talking to him, and he said, I cannot stand the name Jits on everything. It's like, cool, I'm going to change the name of my book now. I didn't know that I was writing the book, and like I'd already like copyrighted the name and all that stuff. I was like, so if I ever do a second edition, I've got to change that.
That reminds me, I was going to ask you that because he's on your Facebook wallpaper in the back on the top. So are you training under or associated with Carl?
No, we have every year we do what we call the Big Ass Jiu-Jitsu Party. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a full Saturday. We had Silver Fox as the headliner. We had my instructor, Derek T.C. Richardson, or excuse me, the instructor that we rank under, Derek T.C. Richardson out of Charlotte. We had John Shell out of Shell Shot BJJ. and we had my instructor, Jason Bebber from Fenix Jiu-Jitsu. So we had 4 mini seminars, and the rest of it is just like open mats. We try to get like maybe 3 or 4 super fights going on that day. We got one of our students owns a coffee bus. He parked out front. We grilled hot dogs, hamburgers. We had, we probably had $2,000 worth of beer here. Right. So like we're just hanging out all day on Saturday, and all of the proceeds went to We Defy Foundation. So we always try to do, I think the first one that we did was when my instructor, Jason Bebber, was going up to New York. We kind of do a big fundraiser for him because he moved up there for 2 months to do jiu-jitsu at University Academy. Nice. And the second year went to Refugee Jiu-Jitsu, which is our friend James Michael from Charlotte. He basically takes in refugee kids, teaches them jiu-jitsu. They have to earn their way up through everything. So I think they have to show up for a month, and then he gives them a gi, and they have like their own responsibilities inside the gym. So they're learning jiu-jitsu, but he's not just giving them a handout for it. They have to regularly. They have to do the homework that they're given, all that stuff. That was the second year we did it. This year we got linked up with We Defy because we have a couple of vets that train with us. So every year we do that, and we always try to look for, new instructors. We always try to pair up some different super fights for it. And like I said, Carl and excuse me, Jason became really good friends, and I've always valued Silver Fox's information. Like every time you watch a video, he breaks things. Yes. Every Friday he does this new Roll with the Fox YouTube video, which is always amazing information. So we were lucky enough to get him down for the weekend, hang out with him. Like me and Bebber got a private lesson from him that ended up being like 3 hours long of us just hanging out doing jiu-jitsu together, which was amazing. Wow. Yeah, it was. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Oh, but it was just, we had some amazing information, and we probably had on and off throughout the day. I think we had 110 people here. Wow. It was great. Yeah.
No, yeah, Carl really impresses me. Actually, people in general like Carl who are a little older and not so physically imposing, and can still like just destroy you. Those guys really impress me. It's like, that is like the testimony of what jiu-jitsu can be, And I have a lot of respect for him. Are you guys Hensler Gracie team?
Yep. Yeah, we're
awesome.
Gracie.
Yeah, awesome. So
the exercises. I'm sorry, I never finished those up. Okay. So we had the hip hinge, and we got the loaded carries. Another one's going to be your crawls. Yeah. Every time I teach a private lesson, if it's with somebody who's never done jiu-jitsu before, there's 3 movements that they always learn perfectly before they leave here: the bear crawl, the shrimp, and the hip bridge. And we go over a couple of different types of hip bridges. We go over a couple of different angles for the bear crawl, and I teach them a couple of different ways to shrimp. Because once you learn those 3 movements, you can kind of get yourself out of a lot of trouble, and you can put a lot of pressure on your opponent through that as well. So that's kind of great. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of other great ones. You need to know how to do a sit out. You need to know how to do, like a walking lunge. You need to learn how to do all these different things. But those are kind of the 3 that we go over every time I do a private lesson, because I can teach them a lot of jiu-jitsu techniques off of that. Shrimping, when in doubt, shrimp it out. It's kind of jiu-jitsu thing where you don't know what's going on. So once you get that, rows are also going to be very important. Most of jiu-jitsu is a pulling motion. Whenever you're going for an arm bar, you're pulling things in. Whenever you get a hold of a lapel or a collar tie, you want to pull their head down, break their posture down. And anytime you're extending your arm and you're pulling your elbow to your rib, that's a row. Whether it's a bent over row, whether it's, an upright row, anything like that. So that, another one would be front loaded squats. Again, just learning how to deal with tension, kettlebells in the rack position, barbell in the front rack position, all of that stuff. And one thing that helps you do is it teaches you how to push forward. There's not I'm not saying I'm against the barbell back squat, but there's not a lot of functional capacity to it. Yeah. I information in my book, think about the last time you reorganized your garage. It's a lot of heavy stuff, but did you ever pick something up, throw it across your shoulders and walk it? Or did you pick it up, pull it to your chest, and then take it over? So that's why I'm front squats.
All right. And I don't do a lot of farmers carries in jiu-jitsu either. I mean, fireman carries. Fireman carries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that myself.
Yeah. So front squats, do you like I mean, I've had times in my life where I could actually get the front rack, and I've had times where it's like really tough. Do you? And I think in your old book, Jiu-Jitsu Fit, and this is all going off memory. I'm just trying to go off memory from reading it before. Yeah. You actually showed the cross arm, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
so
way
the
do
big
you
thing, it just depends on what I'm using it for.
Okay.
So if I have clients that have shoulder mobility problems, then I teach them what we call the bodybuilding style. You actually lay the barbell across your anterior deltoid, and then you just literally use your hands to balance it and keep it stable. But anytime you're doing that, or I think CrossFit calls it the hook grip, this is more if I'm going into a press. So if I'm doing a thruster or if I'm doing front squats and then overhead presses afterwards, I'll go for this because I can just roll right up into the press. This is basically if we're just doing front squats, but the big major break is how high you keep your elbows. This position, it'll start rolling down if you look forward. This position, it'll start rolling down and put pressure on the wrists if you move your elbows forward or down. So you always want to try to keep those elbows high. I mean, this is a pretty tough position for somebody with shoulder mobility issues. Nothing wrong with that. Just switch over to this one.
Okay. Yeah. I actually prefer the cross. That's what I started with when I was younger. I mean, I can do the one, but I actually do prefer the cross. But I do like front squats. I haven't done them in a while, but I think I'm going to try them out again. Or
it's great, man, because also you can get the same amount of tension on your muscles and your core with a lot lighter weight. And I'm always a huge fan. If I don't need to throw 2.5 on the bar, then I'm not going to. If I front rack it, you're probably doing 60, 70% of what you can do with a back squat, because the back squat is compressing your spine. If you go forward, you're really not looking at any type of spinal decompression. With new people, it's easier to just dump the bar and get away from it. Barbell back squat, especially if you got limited shoulder mobility, you can't let go of the bar backwards. So you're looking at a lot higher risk of injury as well.
Yeah, that actually goes into a point I've been like toying with in my head lately, is like trying to find ways to make the exercise harder while forcing me to use lighter weight. Does that make sense? So that I put less stress on the joint and more stress on the muscle, and it's less wear and tear on my body, but I get more out of it. It's my theory on it. So so we have carries, we have rows, we have RDLs, we have front squats. What's your feeling on what is that?
Oh, we got the crawls as well.
Crawls, yes, crawls, and the sit outs, the walking lunges, the shrimps, the hip bridges. And I actually have crawls, but I just wanted to trying to take a couple notes while we're talking. So basically, it's a posterior chain with the body movements.
A lot of it.
Yeah. What is your feeling on pressing movements?
Pressing movements are good, but when we're looking at just jiu-jitsu, as long as you can do, a set of 20 push-ups, normally that's all you need. I mean, you always look at the rate of diminishing return as well. If somebody's pounding you, you're not pressing them out of. Same thing if you're in top side control, you're not pressing them down, you're using your body as one movement. So I'm not against pressing movements whatsoever. But I think that in jiu-jitsu, you get a lot of forward fold stuff anyways. If you're going for butterfly guard, then you're going to be curling up. If you're on bottom half guard, then you're going to be on your side curling in. So a lot of it is bringing your shoulders to your knees. If you're turtled up and somebody goes to take your back and knock you over, you want to avoid those hooks. So you're already getting a lot of hip flexor and a lot of curling movement. If you start adding heavy presses into that, then you'll start getting kind of those old man rolling forward. Yeah,
the kyphotic body. Yeah. What about core? Any specific things with the core?
Dude, if you're doing enough jiu-jitsu, you get plenty of core. And one of the big things, even in my training upstairs, I'm sorry, I keep saying upstairs. We have the fitness facility upstairs, basement. So when I'm training clients upstairs, I don't do that much core work whatsoever. You can do 1,000 crunches a day and never have a strong core. So if you're going with heavy front squats, heavy deadlifts, even heavy bench press, you're getting enough core activation to where you're building those up. When I was getting ready for the men's physique competition, I didn't do any core work whatsoever. Everything came from heavy deadlifts, heavy front squats, even heavy kettlebell swings. You're going to feel that in your core the entire way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I hate doing core movements anyway. So, okay, you said swings too. I was going to ask you about Turkish Getups. What's your opinion on Turkish Getups for jiu-jitsu?
Turkish Getups are awesome, but people overuse them.
Okay.
one of the big things I see in Turkish Get Up is overuse injuries because, like Jim Jones, I'm not sure if you're aware of them or not.
Yeah.
Huge fitness facility out there. Back when Mark Dwight was there, he kind of issued this 100 Turkish Get Up or 100 rep Turkish Get Up workout. And dude, people are injured left and right, man. When I do Turkish Get Ups, it's 5 per side. I follow Pavel's method. I try to go for that 5, but I'll do 5 per side, switching each time, and that's it. I never do 20 in a workout.
Right. Simple and sinister, basically.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, dude, through that program, man, it seems like it is exactly what it says it is. It's
brutal.
So simple.
It's
brutal. It will tear you apart.
Yeah.
It really will.
I bought
Did you do the two-handed swing or the one-handed swing?
I started the two-handed. I went to the one-handed, and I bought his book and I read it. And it's brutal. I mean, if you do like all the stretching before the warm up with the squats, and then do the actual 100 rep, swings and the 10 Turkish get-ups, it's pretty brutal. It's a pretty hard workout. And that's something else I heard before too. Somebody said for jiu-jitsu, if you just did the pull-up, the Turkish get-up, and the swing, you'd probably be covered as far as strength and conditioning. I think that there's some truth to that. I don't necessarily totally agree with that, but I think there's some truth to underlining in that statement that would probably cover a lot of bases.
I think the only caveat I would throw to that statement is if you're working with a deficiency.
Yeah.
If you don't have any deficiencies, you're just looking to get overall stronger and overall more conditioned, then yeah, perfect. But the chances of somebody not having a deficiency or an injury are pretty low. I mean, maybe one glute fires harder than the other. So you do need to work in a little bit, like walking lunges, Bulgarian split squats, things where you can isolate on that deficiency. But no, like I said, I do an abbreviated training program. So more often than not, my workout is dips, chin-ups, and then kettlebell swings.
Okay.
So I just do those 3 exercises, and I do that 3 days a week. And that keeps me growing. I can't remember the guy's name, but he kind of coined this thing called main gaining. So I never go in a gaining phase. I never go in a cutting phase. I'm just maintaining, but I'm getting bigger and stronger as I main gain.
Cool. Well, what's the volume like with the dips and chins and kettlebell swings?
So with the abbreviated program that I've been doing, I try to keep it at 10, 10, and 10.
Okay.
So I do it circuit style. So think about 6 rounds, 10 dips, 10 chin-ups, 10 single arm swings each side.
Okay.
And I chose those numbers based on an 80% principle. So no rep or no exercise should be more than 80% intensity. Okay. So I'm not trying to max myself out and get it to where I'm sore and tired the next day. I try to do it to where I get enough influence and enough traction of the muscles to where I feel good, but it doesn't compromise my training downstairs. It's one of the things that I've found in a lot of jiu-jitsu competitors is they're like, cool, I need to get stronger. And then they hop on like a 5-3-1 or a 5x5 program, and they're so damn sore they can't come to class. I'm like, I thought you were doing this to help out your jiu-jitsu, not to hinder your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I had that same experience. I mean, I still went to class, but it would be like, it was those days, when you get on the mat and you're like, I'm going to lay here and just let this guy smash me to get, because I just don't feel like really doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I know exactly what you're saying. I've tried that. I've done like I said during the pandemic when I was lifting, I was doing a 5-3-1 for most of that time, and it worked really well. But I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. But I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, so it was all good. Because I was, but as soon as I went back to jiu-jitsu, my weights plummeted, like as far as my PRs, and I just didn't have the recovery anymore, and it didn't work out. And I just I dropped it.
And I mean, you can work some periodization in there.
Yeah.
Like say, okay, for the next 6 weeks, I'm just going to drill in jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to do a lot of like competitive style rolling. I'll flow roll. I'll get a tough roll in here and there. I'm just really going to focus on strength. Still get your drilling in. You always want to do your drilling no matter what phase you're in. But for 6 weeks, we're just focusing in gym. If I go down jiu-jitsu and I'm just sore and tired, cool, whatever. I don't care about that. And then the next 6 weeks, I'm still working out, but working out's on the back burner. I'm really focused on getting those competition rounds in, those conditioning rounds for jiu-jitsu. And then keep doing that back and forth, and both will grow. But the big thing is if you find yourself too sore to come into class, then there's a problem. Then you really need to look at, if you got competition coming up, then strength and conditioning is on the back burner. You're always looking to, okay, what's the rules in this competition? Okay, so how long are the time rounds? Cool. We're doing 8-minute rounds. We're doing 8-minute rounds in training. Do some mock training drills. The guys here actually started doing comp class on Sundays. to where they basically look at the rule set. You know, if I'm going against a blue belt, then I'm going against the blue belt rule set as well. I can't pull stuff out that he won't be expecting.
Right.
And then 6-minute rounds, cool. We got 6-minute rounds on the clock. One of our guys is being a mock referee. That way you kind of get that anxiety out of there for whenever they're on the mats.
Right. I remember, I've done competition training in the past. It's brutal, but it is a lot of fun. It's very effective, and it does get you ready for that tournament, you know. So
compete as little as possible.
What is that?
I compete as little as possible.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
My instructor, Jason, whenever he tells me to compete, I'm like, cool, I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, but when I got my brown belt, I had a competition 2 months after that. And there wasn't another brown belt in the house. So my first brown belt competition was up against 3 black belts.
Black belts, yes. How did that go?
It went okay. I got a walk-on Naga championship belt, so I've got some gold to put in there that I didn't have to do anything for. My first opponent for no-gi advanced didn't show up. So really? I got a nice little participation trophy. And then I went in the black belt, what was it, 189 weight class. I weighed in fully clothed with a bottle of water in my hand at 174. But there was no fight in my weight class, so they bumped me up 2 weight classes. Took second in that, and then I took second in the black belt overall, or the black belt absolute.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, they threw everything at you they could to screw you up.
That's pretty happy.
And yeah, that's awesome. That's actually really good. Congratulations. That's badass. I competed a lot as a white and blue belt, and then purple belt was more difficult. I found that I couldn't get like in my own age category, couldn't get a bracket most times. There just wasn't enough. I feel like it's like guys who compete at my age are probably black belts by now, most of them, you know, at 50 or 40 at the time, 49, 48, whatever. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm still not really comfortable yet to go to a tournament at this point, but you know, hopefully in the near future. So you were saying 3 days a week. Would you normally prescribe 3 days a week as far as strength conditioning with jiu-jitsu? Yeah.
Depending on where you're at, 3 days a week is usually good. Honestly, to me, 4 days and up, if your intensity is where it needs to be, then a natural lifter won't be able to do that. You know, and that's one of the big issues in the fitness industry right now is you see these pro bodybuilders hitting 2-a-days, 5 days a week. And people don't understand those guys are geared out their ears.
Yes.
Steroids help recovery so much that you just can't comprehend it. And if a natural lifter tries lifting 5 days a week with 70% intensity, you're going to be so sore, you're going to feel like trash, and you're going to hit overtraining very quickly. Now, if you're doing, 30, 40% because you're at the gym for an hour, but you're talking for 45 minutes of that, then you can do, 5 days a week and still be fine. But if you're training proper intensity, usually 3 days a week is where you start feeling the effects of everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same in jiu-jitsu actually too. I mean, for a lot of people who may be newer to jiu-jitsu and don't understand it, but like the high level competition, scene, gi or no gi, whatever, and these guys are doing, 6 days a week, double days and on the mat, plus doing strength conditioning 5 days a week, et cetera. They're obviously using something to offset the recovery. So, it's not really a mystery.
And with me, I teach jiu-jitsu 5 days a week. I teach the AM class here. Right. And I really relied heavily on Silver Fox. Whenever we had it down here, I had a conversation with him. I'm like, man, I'm just getting beat up. Like I'm teaching white and blue belts, but the 5 days a week thing is just tearing me up. And he's like, man, I dealt with that for years. He said, this is the only advice I can give. Heavy day, light day. Excuse me. Heavy day, light day, heavy day, light day.
Okay.
So basically just trying to switch everything out to where you're getting in just slow rolling. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry. But you're tempering your intensity is basically what he was saying. He said, I don't care who shows up. If it's my light day, it's my light day. We flow roll or I watch. That's all that goes on. He said, you still want to get those hard days in there. He said, not only for your benefit, but to show your class that you're not just one of those, black belts who don't roll, one of the instructors who are too good to roll with anybody. He said, you never want to think that way, but you still got to take care of your own body too. So don't feel like you have to go in there every single time and start tearing it up. He said, you're there when your higher level guys come up. You want to roll with them, flow with them.
Right.
But just always think about, hey, I've still got, 3 days this week to
Mhm.
train, to do everything else that life involves. So you have to work in those light days, and you have to stay like strict with them.
Mhm.
Don't let somebody interfere with your light day because they want to go hard on you.
Right. So, well, that goes into my next question, because I feel the same way. Like what I do is I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday for jiu-jitsu. So, and I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually 6:30 a.m. Sometimes I'll switch the Wednesday to an evening class, and go in at 7. But then Saturday morning is my one gi day where we do open mat, we do gi on Saturday mornings. So where would you structure in the actual strength and conditioning? Do you do it on a day when you train jiu-jitsu, or at a day when you're not, or a lighter day, like a heavier or lighter day during the week?
You could do both. So with me, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just because it works out with my work schedule. Because I work at a gym, I don't like coming in here on Saturdays and Sundays doing stuff. So I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But if my morning class starts at 9 a.m., so on those days when I'm teaching in the morning, that'll usually be my lighter day, and then I'll work out at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that way I've got plenty of time. While I'm training clients upstairs, I'll kind of stretch out. Something's feeling a little rough, I'll grab a foam roller. While they're doing a set of push-ups or something, I'll just kind of grind out my calves, grind out my quads, whatever needs done, and then I'll get a meal in me right after jiu-jitsu, and then I'll eat lunch, and about an hour later I'll work out. So that way I've got plenty of recovery time, and I've got time to refuel before I hit my workout.
Okay. All right. So if I got that correct, you do it on, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are your light days of jiu-jitsu? And those are the days you work out?
Friday's kind of a up in the air one. Fridays, sometimes if I'm just feeling good, like I haven't done anything stupid this week, then I'll jump in, get a heavy day in on Fridays.
Right.
And sometimes I'm just feeling good, so I'll get one hard round in with somebody or whatever. But I'm a big fan of flow rounds. I really am. My head instructor has been out for the past couple of days because he's on a business trip. So I taught yesterday morning, and yesterday morning open mat starts right after the fundamentals class, and one of our blue belts I haven't seen in a while shows up. Man, we got a 15-minute flow roll in.
Awesome.
Dude, it was one of the most technical matches I've ever had. And I say he's a blue belt. He's also a black belt in judo. So he's
nice.
Not a true blue belt. Whenever we were going, dude, and both of us kept it at 40 to 50%. He'd catch me with something. It's kind of catch and release. I'd catch him with something. I'd release it. We'd just keep going. But it was 15 minutes, but we were just having a blast, I mean, it didn't feel like a 15-minute round because we were taking it easy. I'd let him work a little bit. He'd sweep me. I'd work a little bit. No, it was just fun, man. But that's where I think you really learn. You've got time to slow things down, be like, what happens if I put a hook in here instead of up there? Playing different scenarios.
Oh, that's fun. That is fun. I love the flow roll too. Well, that's a good question, actually. I had this question I ask a lot of people, and I'm going to ask you the same question. What are your favorite training methods? Do you prefer free rolling, drilling, or situational sparring?
I'd say honestly all three.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of all of it. Situational sparring, I try to do that, especially if we're learning a new position. If I'm teaching a fundamentals class and I'm trying to teach them, side control escapes, then the first thing I teach is how to establish a good side control. So once the ukes know what a good side control is, I can teach them a much more efficient way for the Torre to get out of that side control. And we'll run through that. I'll give them 1 or 2 tools a piece. And I'm like, all right, we got 1 minute on the clock. Your only thing is to get up, pull some form of guard, or get back to your feet. Ready? And then you just let them shoot it out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know if you're a purple belt, this. Go with somebody and it's a 1 minute round, you're going to boss it along. Yep. If you go with somebody and it's an 8 minute round, okay, I've got 8 minutes. I'm taking my time.
I take my time, yeah.
So
full guard and lay here for a bit. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So anytime it's a shorter round, you're going to go harder. Just naturally, I've got 1 minute to work. I got to get this done. But if it's 8 minute round, I'm like, I'm going to let him work a little bit. I'm going to let him wear himself out. Then I'll start playing around 5-6 minutes in.
Right.
So, situational drills are always good. Like I said, flow rolling is one of my favorite things, especially, sometimes I'm flow rolling while my opponent isn't. If I teach a fundamentals class, then I'm kind of flow rolling while I'm letting a white belt wear themselves out, get some aggression and some energy out.
Right.
So you don't necessarily have to tell them that you're going easy on them. You know, you just let them think they're doing the right things, and they get you in your position. You're like, okay, I can kind of do something from here.
Right. Right. You know, I have to add one to this list though. It's positional rolling.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually my personal favorite is positional. It's just like starting.
Okay. So what do you see different from positional rolling and situational drills?
Well, I guess it's the same. I guess you could call it the same. I'll take back what I said. It basically is the same thing. It's just starting in a certain position and going from there, whether it's half guard, back control.
Yeah, you can start the round from a position. Yeah. We actually stopped doing that because we realized, especially with newer people, they just wanted to hold that position. Right. They weren't looking. So if I start with white belt and I just kind of flatten myself out, I'm like, all right, get side control. And then we get side control. They just fight to the death to keep side control.
Right.
The thing that I started doing, especially with my own training, is we'll start standing, I'll take them down, and then I'll pull guard. And then I'll let them pass my guard. That way I can work my side control. Right. But they're not just holding side control. They're still trying to progress to mount, or they're still trying to progress to an attack. Right. So if I say, okay, I'm going to escape your side control, they're like, cool, I'm not letting you go anywhere out of my side control. Right. They're not trying to go knee on belly. They're not trying to look for a submission, because in their head, they think one thing, okay, maintain top side control. And I don't want that. I want to get a realistic expectation of what somebody's doing. You know, if I turn over too soon and I don't throw a block up, I want them to step over the top mount. That way I can. So I'll literally, grab a blue belt or something. I'm like, all right, cool, let's get around him. And then I'll work on what I want to work on without letting them know that. That way they're constantly trying to look forward and trying to progress their situation.
Right. No, that's a good point. I guess I just sort of fumbled over my own thought of what I was trying to structure with that question. No.
And that was one of the things that we did a lot. It's like, okay, we went over turtle today. Cool. Everybody starts in turtle. And, we'll still do that for the white belts because, when you're in turtle, there's not really a technical position. You don't want to hold somebody in turtle. You want to crack open so you can get an advantageous position. So turtle and stuff like that is good. But whenever, you have two white belts, we're like, all right, starting from mount. And they literally just kind of spider web out and don't do anything from there. The person on the bottom, they're, swinging their legs back and forth, pushing, and they don't really get any type of good training in during that time. It's just a 5-minute struggle cuddle, and that's all.
No, I see that. It's now, in my current development of where I am as far as mount, I see mount as like I'll go to mount on somebody, but I'm like, okay, there's 4 points, and I'm gonna get off and go back to knee on belly and go back to side control, north, south, whatever I'm gonna do and attack from there. I don't stay in mount. I don't really. I think. Just for my personal stuff, I like attacking arm bars from mount, but other than that, I don't see a lot of I don't know. I just don't like the idea. I feel like you're sort of on a teeter-totter, on a balance beam. And
for me, I go to mount for points and then I go back top side. Like I said, I'm usually one of the smaller guys. I'm 174 pounds. So there's usually nobody, especially competitions. There's nobody in my weight class. So they always go up. So if I get mount, I get the 1, 2, 3, 4 points, step off in side control and start attacking from there because I can be heavier in side control than I can be in mount.
Right.
And I always want to try to keep pressure on them. Like you said, you're on teeter-totter. You're at their will. Whether you go to high mount or whatever, if you can maintain a good high mount, then you're usually good. And if it's in gi, I can get inside their collars and kind of pin them down. But in no gi, man, just them driving your hips down, popping up, kind of riding out, hoping you can stay on. If I hit bottom side or if I hit top side, then I can actually get heavy on a shoulder and start looking to pick things apart.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree with you. That's my thing. Like I said, points, and then I'm off, and I'm going back to side control, knee on belly, whatever else, north south, and attack from there, or attack the legs, whatever. But so let's go back to the gi no gi thing we talked about. We hit on a little bit earlier. So do you have a preference between gi or no gi jiu-jitsu? In your opinion, what are the major differences between the two, and how can one complement the other? For the average enthusiast, what percentage of each would you recommend and why?
So I don't have a favorite. It's like, choosing between your favorite child. I love both of them, but I love both of them for different reasons too. I'm an athletic guy, so I love going no gi and just kicking it up. You don't really do a lot of flow rolling. And there's not a lot of, I don't want to say there's not a lot of technical aspects of it, but you always have that just kick it in type favorite there. So I think no gi is a lot more athletic. and is a lot more methodical. You know, if I'm going against somebody who outweighs me by 60 pounds, I want them to have a gi on. I want to be able to hang on their neck like the heaviest necklace they've ever worn, you know? So whenever I go against bigger guys, I prefer gi, but whenever I go against a wrestler, you know, I like no gi. I want to get that movement in there. I want to be able to push with them and start working on like some Greco-Roman takedowns or, you know, just shoot it out with them and see how it goes. If there's a gi involved and I'm trying to work on my wrestling technique, then it kind of slows me down as well.
Right.
You know, but no, I love both of them. My views on the crossover are a little bit different than they used to be. And it's just because different times, you know, before I always told people you should always do both. You know, your jiu-jitsu is going to make you better at no-gi jiu-jitsu. And that was always my thought pattern because, you know, I come from a little town and like if you get gi and no-gi in, then that means you're getting in more hours on the mat.
Right.
And, you know, mat hours are huge. You can have great instruction, but if you're not sparring, then you're not learning. But now, you know, I mean, there's a couple of schools popping up around here that are no-gi only, to where they have 5 classes a week that's just no-gi. And we got a couple catch wrestlers around here as well. So, I mean, I'm not saying you have to go to gi. Gi can make you better at no-gi stuff, but no-gi is always going to be the best if you want to be a no-gi competitor. So before I always told people, you know, train both just because you get more time in. And I saw a meme the other day that I just died out laughing. I sent it to all my no-gi friends. But it said something like no-gi is the easiest 40% of jiu-jitsu. I started dying there. I sent it to my catch wrestler friends. I sent it to my no-gi friends. And I'm like, see, everybody understands this now. Why can't you get this through your head? But no, and we've actually been dealing with that with some our blue belts. Like it seems like, I don't know, the last 5 blue belts we gave out, the guys like burn their gis and just want to do no-gi stuff all the time now. I don't understand. Yeah, I'm like, I love gi and no-gi, both. I don't understand why you would want to basically disavow one and go headstrong into the other. Don't get me wrong, no-gi competitions are a lot more fun to watch. You know, if you're watching IBJJF versus ADCC, of course, the more exciting fights are going to be in, or matches, excuse me, not fights, are going to be in the ADCC because there is more of that athletic atmosphere to it. You know, I mean, many times if you watch the IBJJF championship between 2 black belts, and it's one of the most boring chess matches you've ever watched in your life. You know, I mean, they don't, I'm not saying none of them like put themselves out there, but it seems like here lately they're fighting not to lose rather than you know, like, I got an advantage. I'm just going to grab both of these lapels and lock him down for the next 2.5 minutes. I'm not a big fan of that. I want to see them go to the end.
Yeah, I'm the same. I actually prefer like the submission only. I like to watch submission only tournaments or matches because I feel like there's more activity and they're really going for the kill, you know, and it's just a lot more fun to watch. The IBBJF type rule set, I think it does promote a lot of like stalling and you know, you get a sweep. Oh, I got my 2 points. I'm just going to get on top and I'm going to sit here and hold this guy down for 5-10 minutes until I win. You know, it's not as interesting to watch. I don't know. I mean, it's just my personal opinion, but yeah, I do like I like the submission only. I do like watching like ADCC, like the no-gi ADCC matches. Those are really exciting to watch. And you see all these, you know, the big name guys going at it, the Titans. But yeah, I've heard some different things about gi that I like about as far as the gi no gi thing. Like one is, I got some advice years ago about if you want to make your no-gi better is train in a gi, just use no-gi grips because you have all the friction. So it slows you down. Right. So, or that training no-gi makes your submissions better because you don't have as much control as you do with the gi, like with the grips and so forth and the friction. So you really have to have a tight, you know, submission, and the gi works the opposite where you have the gi creates the friction. So your defense has to be right on, you know, so when you're not wearing the gi, then if you have really good defense, it makes it that much easier to get out. But I like you said, I like them both. I guess I only have a preference right now because I didn't get to do a lot of no-gi for the first 7 years because of scheduling issues. So now that I can do it, I'm really enjoying it. So I still do like training the gi. I still train the gi like at least once a week, but I do enjoy it. And it's still like, to me, it's still like the core of like jiu-jitsu for me is the gi. And I, you know, the and even like the historical aspect of where it came from, how the art grew and what it started with, and it was gi based.
Yeah.
That's all important to me, and I think it should stay. I think some people, I don't know, what's your opinion on how some people think that the gi's going out, that no gi's going to take over? And I personally don't agree with that, but what is your opinion on it?
I mean, I think in the mainstream media, the gi's already kind of been thrown away. The no gi stuff is a lot easier to watch for somebody who doesn't practice. And I think, no gi is growing exponentially every year. At least it was before the pandemic. After the pandemic, everything kind of calmed down. But you had EBI coming up. You had, Who's Number One coming up. Well, I think Who's Number One might be gi as well. Or no, I haven't watched that one. But yeah, look at the top names in there. Connor, Desquad, Atos. A lot of those guys are no gi competitors. And like I said, it's a lot more exciting for somebody who doesn't know what's going on. So I don't think the gi will ever die. Jiu-jitsu is still the only martial art that is continuing to grow and progress. So I don't think jiu-jitsu has met its match whatsoever. But I think the submission grappling or the no-gi part of it is going to be probably more, I don't know. I think in mainstream media it's going to become more prevalent. But also, a lot of people like UFC. They like the MMA fighting. That's always going to be more towards the no-gi grappling side of things.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm curious to see how it goes. I know for me, there's no way I'm getting rid of the gi. I absolutely love gi training just because, like I said, you get with the evenly matched opponent, man. It just throws so more aspects to it. You're literally fighting with a noose around your neck.
Right.
How much more intense could that be? So I'm a huge fan of it. I'm actually working on developing my gripping strategies a little differently now. So I'm playing with the very minute areas of jiu-jitsu. I'm not even really working on my body positioning. I'm just working on, okay, what happens if I grab here on the pants? Okay, what happens if I grab here on the bottom of the jacket instead of up near the lapel? So you got a lot more nuance movements in there whenever you start thinking about gripping strategies.
Right.
Hang on just a second.
Go ahead.
My laptop's about to die. Let me plug it in real quick.
Sure.
Perfect.
I was going to ask you something else, and then it popped out of my head.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Not your fault. It's my fault. I'm old. My brain's full.
Gotcha.
I don't remember it now. I'm sorry. I don't remember it. You were saying it was something you was going off of what you were saying.
Gripping strategies.
Yeah. Oh, gripping. Yeah. Going back to strength and conditioning with the gripping. What's your theory on? And here's a difficult one. If you're doing a lot of gi and no gi every week, it's hard to make a decision. But I have heard trainers who specialize in working with fighters and jiu-jitsu people say that if you're primarily a gi player, you should do grip training that incorporates more of a no gi grip, and then vice versa. So you're not over training the same grip. What is your opinion of that?
I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. I think that's more like a personal decision. Like you said, and Joe Rogan talks about this as well, is how every time he trained gi, he would just go for no gi grips in the first place. But I think it's pretty important to train both of them. And grip training, it's something you can do every single day without having negative effects. The thing that I do see a lot more in gi training over no gi training is blown out flexor tendons in the knuckles. You see any high level gi competitor, their knuckles are 3 times the size of their fingers. And I've got a couple blown out knuckles myself. But I think grip training is great for everything. Like we talked about before, heavy farmer carries, dead hangs, pull-ups. If you've got strong hands, then you can do a lot with it. One of my old training partners, he actually laid granite countertops for a living.
Wow.
So this dude, he was 160 pounds, but he had the hands of a 250-pound man.
Right.
He got hold of the grip. Me and Bebber would always joke about it. He gets hold of the grip, he just work around it until he gets bored. Like the brakes didn't work for him. Like stripping his grip off his lapel, you literally like have to start chewing on his fingers. And like once he got a hold of something, it was there until he got bored with it.
Right. Right.
So like if you've got strong grips, you can just shut everybody down, you know? And so caveat to that, one of the new instructors that we brought in is one of our old friends, Brian Miller. He trains at Octagon from Greensboro. I don't want to say he's old and decrepit, but he's kind of old and decrepit. But he has a gripping strategy to where you can't move either. It isn't tight grips. It's just very well placed grips with very well placed tension from his knees or his shoulder or whatever happens to be in that area. So while he doesn't feel strong, you just can't move and you can't get your hand back. But it isn't because he's, you know, I'm much stronger than he is. But whenever we get in there, he just knows exactly where to grip and where to put the tension where you can't get down. So that was kind of what we were talking about in the beginning about, do you need to get stronger or do you need to get your technique better?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something to it. I think that there's only so far you can take the strength training with. I think that really, I think getting better at jiu-jitsu is really about getting better at jiu-jitsu. It's just your technique. It's really
it is. And like I said, you just basically want to build up any deficiencies you have. And getting stronger is gaining functional strength is always good. But at a certain point, do you really need to be stronger? You know, like you were talking about powerlifting. Like if you can deadlift 250 pounds, like is your jiu-jitsu going to get better if you can deadlift 300? Okay, well, maybe a little bit more powerful grips. You know, I mean, there's 300-pound people, so maybe you need it. But okay, so what if you can deadlift 500 pounds? Is there a huge tactical advantage to being able to deadlift 500 pounds over 300? Same thing with bench press. You know, if you can bench press 250, is your jiu-jitsu going to be better if you can bench press 300? Like at a point, you hit the diminishing returns. So your jiu-jitsu isn't really going to get that much better. There's no way of actually tracking that. But what is worse is your joints. You know, 300 pounds has a hell of a toll on your elbows.
Yeah. And I would say with that, yes, it's going to break down your body. And B, if you're actually getting to the point where you can deadlift 500 pounds and bench 300 or more, you're spending a lot more time in the weight room than you are doing jiu-jitsu. I guarantee you. I guarantee you.
See where you're spending your energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because those were like in my 30s, those were in my early 40s, those were the numbers where I was at. You know, before I power lifted, I was benching, you know, I was still bodybuilding. I was finally benching 3 plates in my late 30s, you know, mid to late 30s. And, you know, where I was squatting 4 plates, you know, et cetera, for at least 5 reps. And, you know, and then when I got into powerlifting, I was, you know, with gear, like with the squat suit or the bench shirt or whatever, I squatted 600 in the gym off a box, and I pulled like 550 at one point, and I benched 405. So, but again, I destroyed myself doing it. So there it goes back to the whole argument of the tendons. But also, that's all I was doing. I was just powerlifting or bodybuilding. I was just lifting weights. I wasn't doing anything else. So I think if you're training jiu-jitsu with any type of intensity or determination to actually get good at it, you can't serve 2 masters. I don't think you can do it. And that even goes back to the whole steroid discussion, you know, and the PED discussion. You know, if you are doing those numbers like some top level competitors,
I don't care if athletes want to do gear. I do care if they're competing in an organization that tests, and that only says you cannot do steroids during this, especially in combat sports.
Right.
You putting somebody else's health on the line because they're not juicing and you are. But you know, caveat to that too. Like, is it cheating if everybody's cheating?
Right. That's it.
You watched the last ADCC. There was a lot of stout guys on that card. You know,
right.
On that match.
Right. So. Right. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to argue with it one way or the other. I agree with you. I think that. I mean, some people will say, you know, it's cheating, and I do think it is. No, I mean, it is in a sense. It is cheating,
depending on the rule set.
Yeah, let's say IBBJF. Let's just say that, okay? You know, the understanding is that you're not supposed to, and that supposedly they're doing some type of testing now, which I think is very limited and isn't very effective in my opinion.
Yeah, I was about to say they might want to check their laboratory and see what's going on.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, but my point is just like it goes back to what you said. It's like if everybody's doing it, is it cheating? I mean, if it's all an even playing field. But then when you look at like the competitor like me or like you, who are we're more like, you know, middle of the road type of people, and we're competing. It's like, like personally speaking, I didn't do, I'm not doing it. So it's like whatever. But then some people say, well, if you're older and you're doing like TRT, is TRT cheating? I don't really, I mean, you could say it is, and I'm not on that either, but I mean,
Yeah.
but it isn't like I haven't considered it or want to talk to a doctor about it. I mean, I'm 50 years old and, it's like, it could be something I want to look at. And
That's it, man. But like, are you wanting to join competitions to where, like you
no,
can't
but
do
that's what I'm saying. I mean, my reasoning for doing would be just to feel better and just have a better quality of life. That's it. It's not, I'm not looking to like amp myself to the ninth degree, just more about, get back to the way I felt like in my middle 20s or something,
No, I completely understand that. And that was my big thing, I went to Naga at Blue Belt,
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going in my, they bumped me up a weight class there too, because there's nobody in my weight class on this planet apparently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they bumped me up a weight class, and my second gi match, I go in there, and this dude is like 3 inches taller than me, every bit of 5 inches wider. I mean, this dude is huge.
Jacked.
I'm like, man, there is no way in hell. Those scales got to be broken. There's no way you're in my weight class. You can watch, I got the video on my YouTube channel.
Well, I'll check it out.
And he grabbed me, man. He got a wrist grab on me, and I felt like he was going to break my forearm. Like, oh, this is what we're dealing with now.
Okay. Right.
But like, I wasn't mad. It was Naga. None of us pissed in a cup. Like, he wants to juice, let him juice. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
And two, like, I knew that we're playing by the same rules. I mean, we're still not going to try to hurt each other. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he wrestled me the entire way down. He crushed me. Like, he beat me. That's all it was to it. But I'm not mad at somebody doing that, But like, so when I did the men's physique competition, that was a natural. Like, we all pissed in the cup. We all went up there. If there was a guy who went up there and just blew me out of the water and didn't pass the sniff test, then I'm kind of like, okay, well, were you juicing? Like, what's going on here? But we all pissed in the cup, So like I said, I don't know their testing standards. I know it was on-site testing, so I don't think it was that great. But the guy who beat me, I mean, he looked great. Don't get me wrong. But he was kind of like underneath that. I could easily see somebody doing that naturally. He's been doing it for a while. He was a former Marine. Like, he was a hard training guy, and he knew a lot about nutrition when I talked to him. So I wasn't like mad for taking second place. Dude clearly beat me. He looked way better than I did. But if I'd have got up there, and the guy who beat me was like 220 pounds carved from stone, I'd be like, I don't know about all this. I might get a little bit of that one,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the guy you were talking about, I mean, some of that could be genetic, just genetic makeup. I mean, some guys are just, I knew a guy, I remember talking to a guy when I was bodybuilding that I actually knew from high school, and I ran into him again at the gym, like in my 30s. And he like walked around with a 6-pack eating McDonald's. The guy was just like a genetic freak. It's just, some people are like that, Ronnie Coleman was like that. I mean, Ronnie Coleman even said himself, he was eating pizza all the time, and he was, when he was still natural coming up, and he had a 6-pack of eating pizza at Pizza Hut every day, or he'd be like, trading like with the Burger King guys, hey, you want some pizza? Or, give me some burgers, and he's eating all this junk food, and he's freaking 6-pack every day,
Yeah.
But he's Ronnie Coleman. I mean, he's Ronnie Coleman. I mean, it's like, it's just a genetic freak, it just plays a factor in it. But going back to my whole point of the whole thing, how we got into PEDs and everything, that I agree that if you're, for the average person, you're not going to be lifting those type of weights anyway. So I think setting realistic goals is important as well. If you're looking at strength conditioning for jiu-jitsu, like how strong do you really need to be strong, So yeah, I think that's why I feel like I'm already there. I think that my personal things are more recovery and cardiovascular endurance. Those are probably things, and mobility. I think mobility is a big thing that I have never been great about and would like to get better at. What are your thoughts on mobility training? What do you personally look at?
I do mobility training every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. A lot of the kettlebell work that I do, as far as Turkish Getups, windmills, a lot of things like that. I use that. I've got one in my book called the Shin Box. That's one of my favorite hip mobility exercises. But also, too, I think that's one of the big benefits of doing flow rolls with people is you are getting that mobility aspect in there, and you're not worried about putting your joints in a bad position. Like I said, me and Ross did a 15-minute round. And it just flew by, but I was working open guard. I was working standing. I was working total. I was like moving through all of the positions, but it really gives you time to like figure out where your proper position is. and you get that in, and I think that warm-ups, I'm terrible about skipping warm-ups with class. If I know there's no new students there, then we don't run laps, we don't do line drills. But I think the line drills are very important. Like you've got all of your different shrimping, bear crawl, and all that stuff that we talked about before. I try to, every time we do them, I make sure the guys slow down. Tell them it's not a race to see who can get to the other side of the mat faster. Drop your hip when you're doing a bear crawl. Roll your shoulders over. Try to get that movement in there. Loosen your spine up. And I try to match it to whatever the lesson is for the day. Like if we're going over triangles from guard, then I'll have them do the thing where you sit on the butt, roll back, kick your legs up, triangle them, come back down, roll back up. That way you can loosen the neck up, you loosen the hips up, you get the knees turning inside and out. That way you get triangles a little bit better. If we're working open guard, then I'll have them do like a butt scoot drill back there. That way they get the hamstrings warmed up. Like basically turn your back to it, almost like you're starting from sitting, and then kind of push yourself across the mat to get the knees warmed up, the hips warmed up. Just a lot of stuff like that. If we're going over Kimuras, then we're going to do some shoulder mobility exercises, make sure that we get some good rotations in there. So I try to specialize it to the class, even the stretching routine. That way, A, you're not bored going through the same thing every single day. And two, like we actually warm up what we're going to be attacking. That way people kind of get used to feeling the shoulder blade move around, see where their own range of motion is in their shoulder. Whenever they come up, maybe get here and pull it over, figure out where they're flexible at, where they can put their shoulder in a good position. If they get an Americana, is my shoulder safe here or is it safe here?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I get my shoulder down to start retrieving my hand, a lot of things like that.
Interesting. Yeah. I need to start doing a lot more like mobility. I've tried to get into the habit of doing it while I watch TV or something in the evening. Just to try to put it in somewhere where I do it. But like I said, I will fully admit that I am really bad at stuff like that. It's like I'm really good at like going to class and I'm good at lifting weights, but I'm not good at mobility. I don't know why. I just need to get better at that.
Sometimes, man, it's just the boring part of it.
It is boring.
Whenever I take on a client, I find out, I run through a movement analysis, and then I find out where they need to like start opening up, open the hips up, open the hamstrings up, and then I'll give them a stretching routine. First thing I tell them is just fire up some Netflix, man. Sit in the floor in the living room, stretch while you're watching TV. Make it to where it's not boring. If you like audiobooks, perfect time to listen to an audiobook.
Right. Or a podcast.
Exactly.
So I don't ask this question of everybody anymore, but I'm going to ask it to you just because I got a feeling you might give me a really cool response. I am a bit of an artist. I like to draw, but I like to draw comic characters the most for whatever reason. I guess I'm a little bit of a geek, or a lot of a geek. I don't know. Who's your favorite superhero?
Deadpool.
Awesome.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Awesome. You'll be. I'll be reaching out to you in a couple of months for an address, and someone's going to show up for you.
Oh, perfect.
So I like to do that for a lot of people I interview. I will do a drawing form or sketch form of whatever their favorite superhero is, because it gives me. It's like for me, it's my way of saying thank you, and it's also my way of also drawing something that I'm not necessarily all that comfortable with, instead of doing my mainstays. So it forces me out of my box. But I'll be sure to send you one. I'll let you know in a couple months. It takes me a little while, but because I got all kinds of other stuff to do, and I like to do a good job, so I don't have to rush through it.
Yeah.
But so people can contact you at Instagram at Daniel Fredell, one word. You're on Facebook as Daniel Fredell, and your website is originalworkout.net.
You can actually just go to danielfredell.com. Okay. I tried to make it easy and just put my name as everything on there.
Okay. And
originalworkout.net is our training facility.
Okay.
So you get pictures like inside of it, and Fenix Jiu-Jitsu, we have our own website there, and that's also linked to originalworkout.net and my website. So we kind of network everything together. Sweet. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube if you want to learn some kick-ass kettlebell exercises, flows, all of that stuff. I've got a couple programs that are in the works right now. We're trying to finish up the video editing and stuff. So all of that stuff will be available on my website. You can get to YouTube off my website as well. It's just my name.
And, speaking of YouTube, I was going through some of your YouTube videos while I was prepping for the interview, and I saw one on there that I really was impressed by. it was like, these are the kind of things that impressed me. They're small things, but they're important things. It was the video you did on pull-ups, where you were talking about the band and how the band deactivates the core, and how it's better if you need to use an assisted pull-up to actually put a box behind it, put your toes on it, and use some of your toes to press up. I thought that was freaking genius. Yep. I was like, see, that's the kind of stuff that turns me on. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, one of the big places where people have issues with pull-ups and chin-ups is they have this lag from their lower body. You know, a pull-up and a chin-up are both full-body exercises. If you're swinging your feet around and your core's not activated, then you're literally just trying to pull up a sack of potatoes. Well, it's a lot easier to pull up a board. So I usually have people starting out, cross their ankles, and then straighten their feet out in front of them, like pointing towards the ground. But instead of like just straight down, you know, just kind of like going here,
a little bit in front,
forward or just a little bit. And that fires up the quads and the glutes, and that helps the back work more efficiently. So if you put a box behind you, you can dig through your toes, still fire up your quads, still fire up your core to keep you going in a straight line.
Nice. Yeah. No, yeah, that was genius. So I was like, oh, that's good stuff. Well, hey, Daniel, I really appreciate you coming through and speaking with me today. It was a pleasure. Hopefully I can have you back on in the future. I'm actually I want to get a copy of your Simple to Salvage Kettlebell book and check it out. And maybe in the future we can do another episode about those things. All right. Well, thank you very much. It was great. And
thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conversation, Greg. Thank you. I'm happy to be back on anytime you want me to.
Awesome. We'll make it happen. Okay. Thanks, guys. All right.
Yep.